Hi, I'm Dean Sharp, and welcome to Dean Sharp's America. This is a show, if you're new to this show, it's a show all about helping everyday people do extraordinary things to help save America and make it great again. I'm the author of 2 books, Where Did My Country Go? And Taking My Country Back. We have a mailbox, and I wanted to tell you that, by the way, here's a letter from Heidi, and I wanted to let you know what she says. She writes a great question. Heidi from Jackson, Mississippi. It's pertinent because she says, why are they tearing down the Confederate memorials of people like Robert E. Lee and others? And Heidi, that's a great question. It's timely, and I appreciate that. Let me just give you a quick answer. They're tearing down memorials of the Confederacy because they don't understand history. They have no clue as to what this is. And these radicals have been trained by someone else to follow a Marxist doctrine or something, and they have no clue about what history says. Now, the good news is, in my book, one of my books, in chapter 6 of the 2nd volume, Taking My Country Back, I address this very issue. And Heidi, I'm going to talk to you and other people about this because you need to know, and you probably remember that before they started tearing down Confederate memorials this year, and have talked about plans to destroy memorials all across America, and this is part of a big, giant plan, by the way. If you recall last year and the year before, the Confederate flag was in question, and in fact it was removed and officially removed, and people apologized, and there were people calling for white Americans to write letters of apology for slavery, and so I want to address a little bit of that gives you a backdrop of this, because this is part of a great learning process of learning history and what it's all about. The Confederate flag, first of all, was never a flag that represented slavery, except if you chose to believe that that's what it was for. It was not created for that purpose. It represented a series of states along the southern border that decided that they wanted to secede from the Union based upon states' rights. And so they created the stars and the bars. Now, it is true that there were more slaves in the South, but that was due to the agribusiness. In other words, there was more agriculture there than there was in the Northeast of the United States. But the flag never had anything to do with slavery per se. People just associated it with that. What's interesting is that we have a flag in the world that represents slavery much greater than the Confederate flag ever did. Take the Muslim flag, for example. For 1,400 years, Islam has been financed by black African slavery. They held 180 million black Africans as slaves before America was even born. You say, well, that was then and this is now, but the problem is slavery still goes on. Arab Muslims still are in the slave trading business. And so I'm forced to ask the question, which flag should have been taken down? Well, I don't think it was the stars and bars that should have been taken down, because it didn't stand for slavery. It's the Muslim flag. And yet it flies, and people are intimidated by Islam because of the threats of death and the terrorist killings and things like that. But truth is truth, and that's what this show is all about. And we're going to deal with true issues, whether it's convenient or politically incorrect. We're going to call things the way they really are and back it up with facts. And so the Confederate memorials are all wrapped up in this same issue about what about slavery. Robert E. Lee, speaking of history, Robert E. Lee was a man who was a great American long before the Civil War was ever thought of or dreamed of. He was a hero of the Mexican War with the United States. And he fought for the United States. And Abraham Lincoln, commander-in-chief of the military, President Lincoln, chose Robert E. Lee to be the general in charge of the United States Army. And this was before the Civil War. You see, these radicals don't understand that. They've never heard that before. But that's the truth. Robert E. Lee was number one of the greatest people that ever graduated from West Point. Number one in his class. He decided, however, when the Civil War was starting, that he would not draw a sword or shoot a gun against his own people in Virginia. And so he went home to Virginia and became a part of Dixie, or the Confederacy. And because of that, these non-thinking radicals want to tear his statue down because they associate him with slavery. The problem is we have an education problem in America. We have a learning problem in America, and people need to learn history to understand what made America great, what were the problems that existed, and especially today, before we start destroying the country, we need to understand, what does this Confederate statue really stand for? It's a part of what happened here. I may not agree with everything that happened in the Confederacy. I do believe in states' rights. I do not believe in slavery. But it's a part of our history, and it teaches us where we've been. I find it ironic that as you try to learn history, one of the groups of people in America that's trying to block history from being learned is the radical left, which is found in the Democrat Party. They believe in Marxism. Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1848, and the summation of his first 2 pages of that is that his first battlefield in getting his economic theory heard and listened to and believed was that he would have to rewrite history in order to make that happen. So what you find as a theology or a philosophy of these radicals that are running around, you find that they are being financed by Marxists who want to destroy the history of America. That's true of anything that goes on here. I find, there's a lot of things that I say in chapter 6 in my book about history. When the Civil War was finished and the treaty was signed, I find it interesting that for up to 18 months, the slaves in the North were not freed. So the Civil War really was about other things than just slavery. It got involved in the Civil War, but it was about much more than that. So you see, before we start tearing down part of our history and monuments and trashing people's names, and by the way, ESPN has even had a reporter, a sportscaster named Robert Lee. He's a Asian American. He does a great job. They've taken him away from his work because of his name, because it was Robert Lee. The political correctness in this country to try to appease people who refuse to learn history is unbelievable, and it's got to stop. And that's part of what this show is all about. We're trying to help you, the everyday person, learn and become more equipped with facts, the truth, so that you can do extraordinary things and stand up with us and help save America. So Heidi, I hope all of that, the short answer and the unabridged answer that I gave to you, I hope that makes sense and it helps you. And I encourage the rest of you to go ahead and write into deansharpsamerica@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to take your questions. We'll have one each show, and we'll be glad to try to answer that, because I want to help you to become a better American. Thank you. Hi, I'm Dean Sharp. I'm author of the 2 books, Where Did My Country Go and Taking My Country Back. Dr. Ben Carson said that they were ingenious and combined history with current events, and he said if American people would read them, it would restore our nation, just following that, and heal our land. Whether I'm writing these books, whether I'm speaking on TV or radio, whether I'm talking to people like you, I try to help people, everyday people, to do extraordinary things to help save our country. I challenge you to read them and become a better person. God bless you.